Hey guys, sorry about the camera quality. I'm recording off my phone. I'm here to announce this is my MCU marathon thing. I recently just got the idea to marathon all the MCU movies for my hype for Endgame. I'm so excited. And I'm going to be making, quick little not comprehensive, just little quick reviews, just talking about the movie, what I think about them, and all that stuff. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy it. It'll all be put together in one video. This isn't going to be a daily thing, it'll be one video. Hopefully it's going to be all edited and stuff, so it looks a little better than this. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy. See you guys later. Bye. Okay, so I'm recording this the day after I actually saw it, but I saw Iron Man on the 2nd of April, and wow, I really like Iron Man. I forgot how good it was, and the fact that the entire script is basically improvised really goes to show how strong the characters are in that movie. It's very early, you can tell, it's very cheesy. They're not very cheesy, there's a lot of cheesy things about it, but the movie actually does a really good job at trying to maintain a realistic and a cheesy superhero sort of vibe. The director knew exactly what they were doing. I believe it was Jon Favreau. I love Jon Favreau so much. He's not actually in the movie that much as Happy, which is very surprising. But it was genuinely really enjoyable. I'd say the worst part about the movie was the ending. I'd say the ending gets really dumb really fast. I think Obadiah starts off as a great character, and then just towards the end, he just builds a mech suit for no reason and starts beating people up and trying to kill people. It makes no sense. It just completely, he loses all sort of sense of his character, and the ending fight is pretty boring. It's not that interesting. But I could have imagined as a kid, probably would have loved that. But that's it for Iron Man. I really like it. I think it's a very strong start to the MCU. It's not super extravagant yet. It's not really super like crazy MCU like we know it now, but it still gets the job done very well, and I very much like Iron Man. So yeah, see you guys next time. I'll be watching The Incredible Hulk next time, which I've never seen. Okay, so that was Incredible Hulk. That was my first time actually sitting through and watching it, and it was a movie, alright. Alright, I didn't want to watch it because I figured it would be boring and that it would have nothing to do with the MCU and that I would not take anything away from it. And all those are kind of right. It's boring. It's not too boring. It's one of the shorter Marvel movies, so it ends much faster. It's like an hour 50 minutes or something like that, which is much shorter than a lot of them. Ed Norton, I just don't like him as Hulk or Bruce Banner. I think Mark Ruffalo has way more personality. He's way goofier. I know a lot of people like Hulk because he's this major, big, badass. You know, he can destroy planets or whatever, but I just like goofy Hulk. I like the idea of a giant green man running around smashing things. It's just funny to me, and that's why I like him in Ragnarok and stuff, because he just does dumb things. He's not like that in this movie. I don't like his design in this movie. I don't like gross skeleton Hulk that he fights at the end. That's another example where the ending just kind of gets really boring. Like, I guess it's a cool fight scene, whatever. It doesn't really hold up as well as some of the other MCU fights. I know the CGI, granted, it came out a while ago. I know, I'm probably being a little too harsh on this, but it still looks really gross. And that villain also gets really boring. He's just like, I'm gonna kill you, I'm Big Hulk now. It's like, okay, alright, cool. It was okay, I guess. It's not the worst thing in the world. I guess if you want to really, it's no harm in just checking it out. It's on Netflix for me. That's all I gotta say about Hulk. On to Iron Man 2, which I haven't seen in a while, so we'll see what I think about that. Alright, so I just watched Iron Man 2. It's been a while, and it was okay. I don't have too much to say about it. It was pretty run-of-the-mill. A lot of these movies aren't too interesting to me, honestly. It's because Phase 1 is so tame to what we'd later get. Phase 3, personally, is my favorite phase. It's crazy, and it goes pretty bizarre. And that doesn't, again, Phase 2 is pretty good. You know, it's actually really good. But Phase 3 is where things really get, awesome. So, I guess as a Phase 1 movie, this was alright. It's not nearly as good as the first Iron Man. There's a little too much going on. There's a lot of characters being introduced. You know, you have Rhodey's recast, which is a better recast. I'm much happier with Don Cheadle over the previous Terrence Howard. Much better cast, in my opinion. I didn't even hate Terrence Howard. I just don't think he fits the role very well. I much like Don Cheadle a lot more. The villain was pretty boring. Again, it's just a Phase 1 Marvel villain. They're all pretty boring. None of them are really too interesting. In fact, they don't really get good until Loki. Loki's the best Phase 1 Marvel villain, in my opinion. But again, just a boring villain. He's just some Russian dude. Like, okay. So I thought, if I were to talk about all 3 movies that I've seen so far, I'd say Iron Man's my favorite, then probably Iron Man 2, then Hulk. I didn't like Hulk as much as, Iron Man 2 was interesting, I guess. It introduced a lot of things. It introduced Black Widow, which is kind of interesting, and also Don Cheadle as War Machine. But besides that, that's really it. I don't have much else to say. That was Iron Man 2, I guess. So next movie up is Thor.
Next up on the list was Thor, and you know what? I've been a little negative for these last Marvel movies, so I'll go ahead and say that Thor was okay. I think it's probably one of the better ones. You can notice the quality is definitely starting to increase a lot, and then Captain America I like quite a lot. I think it's probably my second favorite Phase 1 MCU movie, aside from Avengers, and then Avengers is really good. But let's just wait till we get to that point. Anyways, Thor is pretty decent. It's got a pretty basic story. He gets banished, he lands on Earth, he's trapped, he fights Loki at the end. It's pretty by the numbers. It doesn't do anything particularly special. I mean, we've seen this 100 times by now, but for an origin story movie, it's fine. Asgard looks really pretty in this movie, I'll be honest. I was not expecting it to look as nice as it did. I just remember the movie looking really bland, but honestly, I like how it looks a lot in this movie. I dare say that I think it looks nicer in this movie than Ragnarok, because Ragnarok, I remember, doesn't really make Asgard look particularly super interesting. This movie really does go all out in presenting it. I don't know how that changes in Thor 2. Maybe it gets redesigned. I have no idea. I have never seen Thor 2, so I have no idea. Either way, the movie was okay. I don't think any of the Earth stuff was particularly interesting. I think pretty much all the Asgard scenes are pretty, they're nice to look at. Loki, again, the acting in this movie is really good. Visually, it looks pretty decent for whenever it came out. But other than that, I don't have much else to say. It was fine. It's not the worst MCU movie. It's definitely not the best. But yeah, that's what I thought about Thor. Next up, we got Captain America, the First Avenger.
Captain America the First Avenger was really, really good, super enjoyable. I forgot how much I really liked this movie. It's probably my second favorite MCU Phase 1 movie, besides Avengers, of course. Avengers is, ooh. But yeah, anyways, I really like this first Captain America movie. I don't know, it's just genuinely solid. I think there's a problem where a lot of the other Phase 1 MCU movies kind of lack something or are a little repetitive, but this one manages to be really entertaining. It's definitely not the best Captain America movie, far from it. The Captain America series as a trilogy is genuinely really good, and I can't wait to talk more about that once we get on to Winter Soldier and Civil War. But overall, this is a great start to the movie. It's a little basic, not much happens in the movie overall, but it's still very entertaining, and Captain America is such a great character who has changed so much from what he has, and it's really weird and bizarre to see how he starts out as the little skinny guy. CGI genuinely really good there. Good job on the team who did that. This is when they start getting really good, because Avengers comes out next, and I'm very excited to rewatch Avengers. It's been a long time since I've seen Avengers again. So yeah, I really like Captain America First Avenger. It's one of my favorites. Alright, next up, Avengers. Can't wait.
Okay, Avengers. What else is there to say, man? Avengers is awesome. It's just one of those movies that is pretty much enjoyable every time you watch it. Even if you notice technical things wrong with the film, it really doesn't matter. The whole film just gets you so hyped up. It really is such an event. I could have only imagined watching this in theaters when it came out. I didn't, unfortunately. I hadn't really even fully watched it until like a year ago, so this was basically my second time watching it, and wow, it does hold up. Yeah, it's really great. It's one of the best ensemble movies of all time. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Obviously, there are problems with it, but it's just so much fun, and there really is nothing that you can't really take it away fun. You have such a good time with it that it's hard to get mad at it. So, yeah, that was Avengers. That was awesome. Yeah. Okay, that's the end of Phase 1. I will see you guys now for Phase 2. Iron Man 3 is the first Phase 2 MCU movie, and it was actually not that bad. I think a lot of people make a bigger deal out of this movie than they have to be. People often say it's really bad, and it's really not. It's actually pretty well made. It's not perfect, obviously. It's it's still kind of in a rough area. It's got some bad things about it, but overall, it's better than Iron Man 2, I'd say. It's well made, it's got entertaining moments. A lot of the jokes actually made me laugh out loud. There's a lot of funny things that Tony says, and that's usually the case with every movie he's in, but it just surprised me how many funny lines actually caught me off guard this time around. I like Iron Man 3. I don't have a ton to say about it because I know people were mad about the Mandarin. I don't really care. I think it's kind of a funny twist. I like that character. He's really bizarre and just weird, and I like that about him. But, people say the kid's annoying. He really isn't. He's not there for too long. People make out like that whole scene is like way too. It's not that long at all. Extremists were kind of interesting villains. The main villain isn't super interesting again. He's got cool powers, but other than that, his motivation's kind of weak. He's just not a super interesting character. But I like the movie, so yeah, not much else to say. I liked Iron Man 3.
Thor: The Dark World is boring. It's lame and boring. It's not very good. Now, am I gonna sit here and say that it's the worst MCU movie? Probably not. I don't know. I haven't been through all of them yet, but from experience, this is definitely one of the more boring ones. It's shorter than I was expecting. It's not quite 2 hours. It's almost 2 hours, but not quite. So that's nice. Jane is boring. She's even more boring in this one than she was in the first one. There's some weird jokes that again caught me off guard, kind of like Iron Man 3. It was just like there were some strange jokes that actually managed to like made me laugh. It was weird, but a lot of it was just pretty lame. I don't know. It's definitely one of my least favorite MCU movies. It's just so forgettable and bland. I guess probably the best part is the hint of humor here and there, but it's not super common, so yeah. Captain America: Winter Soldier still manages to be probably one of my favorite Marvel movies to date. It's ridiculously entertaining and ridiculously good. It's a really good spy movie. It was such a pleasure actually going back and watching how much of a higher quality this is than a lot of the earlier Phase 1 Marvel movies. Phase 2 is where things start to get really good. Again, I would say that this is one of the best Marvel movies to date. I know for a fact that it is probably top 3 for me, only because I like Civil War a bit more than this, even though I would probably argue that Winter Soldier is a better movie. I just like Civil War a bit more than this because of everything going on in that movie, and I love Infinity War to death, so yeah, this is definitely top tier though. It's Marvel at its peak for sure. Guardians of the Galaxy is great fun. It's really, really cool. I like the space stuff. I really like the sci-fi stuff, as you guys may or may not know. So it's definitely up my alley. I really like all the characters. It's really fun to see how it kind of all gets started in this movie. We know these characters so well nowadays from Guardians 2, Infinity War, but it's weird to kind of see how they started. Gamora and Nebula being mainly villains, and it's just interesting to see how all the characters come together, and it's a really well done movie. I like it a lot. I love the futuristic setting, although I do think there is a little too much just like, oh, this is the Zaxxas system that Emperor Zigbar is taking, like that kind of stuff, which can get kind of old, especially if you have no idea what the heck they're talking about most of the time. And this gets pretty redundant pretty quickly. I pretty much say this in every review. The villain is super boring, and this is a problem for 2 movies, because not only is he a boring villain in this movie, who just the whole time you're like, shut up, dude. Just stop. Especially when he's like, I'm gonna kill you, Thanos. It's like, yeah, no you're not. Nice try, but man. It's another thing too, Thanos' scene in this movie is actually really bad. Not a lot of people talk about it, but that scene is really dumb. It kind of just takes away everything cool about Thanos. Thank God Infinity War like made him so much better, because this movie did not make his first scene that impressionable at all. But yeah, Guardians, what else to say? It's really fun. I love the music in it. I love the style. I love it in general. You know what? I don't hate Avengers Age of Ultron. Do I like it? Not really. I don't think it's that good. I really don't. It's definitely the worst Avengers movie. I mean, we don't know. Endgame's not out yet. You know, Endgame could be the worst Marvel movie. We don't know yet, but I hope to God not. Anyways, Age of Ultron is just kind of boring and predictable. It's just kind of like, hey, let's just do Avengers, but more. And it just doesn't feel as big scale. It should feel as big. It should feel a bigger scale, you know? But somehow it's not. Somehow it's just, it feels way more watered down. It feels like, oh, we just gotta do Ultron because that's what the Marvel fans want. It really doesn't need to exist. It establishes a couple main characters. It builds up a couple points that are played into future movies, but overall it really doesn't do too much interesting. I would have liked it if they tried a little harder with this one. I don't think Joss Whedon was really the man for the job anymore. He did Avengers, and he did it really well, but I think for a sequel, someone else needed to handle it. Someone like the Russo brothers who can actually make it work really, really well. And they did that with Captain America. They turned it into one of the greatest Marvel franchises, so yeah, overall, I don't like Age of Ultron that much, but I don't think it's terrible. I think it's passable.
Ants! Ants! Ant-Man!
Ant-Man, weirdly enough, is the last Phase 2 movie. I didn't even realize this. I had to ask because I had no idea. So, I like Ant-Man, but I don't think it's perfect. I think it has a lot of issues, and I think it's definitely kind of bland. I think Edgar Wright would have brought, who originally was on the project, would have brought so much to the table and made it a much better movie, but he really got pushed to the sidelines, which is truly unfortunate. He's an amazing director, and it would have been really cool to see what his version of Ant-Man would have been. Most likely much better than this. So what we kind of get is a bland movie. I think there's some fun things about it. I like most of the weird characters. There's a lot of weird humor in this movie that I kind of like. I like Scott as a character. I like the weirdos that he hangs out with. I like Hank Pym. I do like Hope Van Dyne. I like all those characters, so it's nice seeing the characters. Once again, the villain's boring. That's to be expected at this point, but we're getting to like, we're getting to a point where it's like, come on guys. Luckily enough, the next villain after this is actually really, really good. But yeah, I like Ant-Man. It was the first Marvel movie I actually really watched before getting into the MCU, so I have some respect for it, but it's not my favorite Marvel movie, that's for sure.
Captain America Civil War is awesome, man. I freaking love it so much. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies, and yeah. I mentioned before that I really liked Winter Soldier, but I actually like this one a lot more. And while I think Winter Soldier is probably the better film, I like Civil War a lot more because of everything that happens. You know, I like to be as critical as possible, but when I get excited, I get excited. And this is a very exciting movie. People have often said that the focus isn't really, you know, on Captain America. That's not true at all. It is definitely a Captain America movie. It follows all the characters from the Captain America movies. It is primarily focused on Captain America because, again, it's a Captain America movie. So people were like, oh, it's Avengers 2.5. No, it's not. It's just it's a Captain America movie. But it's got a great cast. I was really excited for this movie when it was first coming out, and I loved Ant-Man, and that was the reason why I was on Team Cap. But Team Cap, honestly, I still fully follow Cap's, endeavor. Both sides have stubborn reasons for doing what they want to do, but at the end of the day, you do understand all their motivations. And Zemo's plan, Zemo, great villain. He isn't necessarily like the best or most memorable character, but he is a very well-written villain. He knows exactly what he wants, and at the end of the day, he pretty much succeeds. I mean, he messes up towards the end, but he does get the Avengers to break up, so he won, you know? I really like this movie. It's definitely one of my favorite MCU movies of all time. It was a blast rewatching it.
I'm very fond of Doctor Strange. I like it quite a lot. I was pretty surprised by how much I actually really liked it. A lot of people complained about Doctor Strange's character, or Stephen Strange's character, say he was too unlikable, but that's kind of the point. He becomes better by the end of the story, so I don't really see the problem anyways. Yeah, he starts off as an arrogant jerk face, but by the end of the movie he learns to be more responsible, he learns to put faith in others, you know, he actually learns to be a nice guy. So, and Tony Stark's the same way too. He was arrogant at the beginning of Iron Man 1, then he actually learned to, you know, trust people and all that. So I don't get why everyone was like, oh, he's a terrible character. He really wasn't. He's a great character. All the visual effects in this movie, fantastic. They're so good. It's the best part of the entire movie. Just seeing all the buildings and stuff flip out and like spin around is super, super cool. All the magic and stuff is really well integrated, and it's really interesting just to see how it all goes. The story is a bit generic. It's a bit, you know, it's nothing crazy new, but again, I'd say this movie is mostly, you know, you go see this movie for the visual effects, and that's the best part of the entire movie. But yeah, I liked it. It was a great introduction to Doctor Strange, and I'm highly awaiting a sequel. I really hope we get a sequel, and I hope it just goes crazy with their concepts.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is interesting for me. It's bizarre the more I think about it. I really, really like this movie, but at the same time, it's very flawed. It has a lot of problems. I think the story isn't that good. I think it's pretty weak. I don't think it's nearly as good as the first movie. But at the same time, there's a lot that I enjoy about this movie. I also don't think the CGI is as good. There's nice visual effects here and there, but there's a lot of off CG in this movie. There was a lot of weird, like, it looked fake. You could tell, and you're like, what the heck? I know, obviously, it's not as big as Infinity War or something, but you'd still think it would look better than that. They've done better CGI than that. Even in the movie, they do better CGI than a lot of the CG. It's weird. It's a weird gray area. I like this movie a lot. It's very Renzo-esque. I was thinking about it. Renzo was very much inspired by this movie. It's a very cartoony movie. It's very over the top. It's very colorful. And I really like the way the movie looks. It goes a little extreme sometimes. You can tell James Gunn just wanted to have fun and make a cartoon with this one. There's a lot of cartoony things about this movie. The villain, Ego's okay. He's not super interesting, but he's fine, you know. He's better than a lot of Phase 1 villains, that's for sure. But yeah, I like the movie. I actually really do enjoy it. I think it was really fun. I think it's kind of emotional at times. The jokes aren't the best, you know, they're not the best written in the entire series, but they still are kind of goofy and funny, and I appreciate that.
Alright, Spider-Man fans, get your pitchforks, get your spaghetti. This is going to be a little bit of a controversial opinion. Spider-Man Homecoming is probably my favorite Spider-Man movie. Yeah, I have no shame in it. I really don't. I think it's a really good movie, and I think you stupid, I shouldn't call you guys stupid, but I think people who get really mad about this movie or think that it's terrible, just step back and realize what you're saying. Just stop. Do you guys realize that a story doesn't necessarily have to be beat for beat exactly the same thing in order to be a good movie? You realize they could be a little bit more subtle with their approach, right? I get mad because there are so many Spider-Man fans that just insist that this movie is terrible and that Tom Holland's Spider-Man is the worst Spider-Man. I don't get it. I really don't. It's a different interpretation of the character. Yes, absolutely. Different interpretation of all the characters in this Spider-Man universe. It's a different interpretation because it's in a different universe. Of course it's going to be different. That's the case with every MCU movie. So I get really annoyed when people claim that the movie is just not a good Spider-Man movie. It's a great Spider-Man movie. It's fine. Like I said, it's my favorite Spider-Man movie. Right up there with Spider-Verse for me. I like Spider-Verse a lot, but I like this movie a lot more because I dig the MCU, you know, and I really like this interpretation of Peter Parker. I think he is really, really fun in this movie. It's a really fun movie. That's the end, you know, that's the end of it. I think it's really fun. I think the villain's fun. I think the whole premise of it is fun. I don't have much else to say. It was really just a rant about Spider-Man fans, you know. I really enjoy the movie quite a lot. Spider-Man Homecoming for you.
I adore Thor Ragnarok. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies, and even though it's pretty flawed, I mean, I'll say that the movie looks pretty bland a lot of the cases. I mean, I like the colors and I like the alien planets and stuff like that, but I do think that all the Asgard stuff really does look bland. I just don't think it's shot in a super interesting way. There are some shots I like, but again, all the Asgard stuff is shot really boringly, but that's not really a big issue. The whole movie is a blast to watch. This whole reboot of Thor is something that I've genuinely enjoyed. Thor was starting to get stale, and turns out Chris Hemsworth was like, yeah, no, I don't like playing him, or something like that. So I'm very glad we got this sort of reboot of Thor. It's not a reboot, it's a continuation, but they do a good job at setting up a new story for Thor, you know? They basically destroy everything about Thor's previous movies, you know, they get rid of Asgard completely, they kill off a bunch of characters from those movies. I thought that was really funny. I think it's interesting how the whole movie is just like, yo, let's just undo everything those previous movies did. So, yeah, I really like Ragnarok. I really like all the side characters. Korg and Meek are like the greatest characters of all time. I really hope we see them in Endgame, or they get a spin-off show or something. That'd be really funny. But yeah, I love Thor Ragnarok. Yeah. I don't like Black Panther that much. Whoa, what a shock. Black Panther is the best Marvel movie. Yada yada. I've heard that a million times. I just don't like it that much. It really has a lot of weak things about it. Are there good things about it? Absolutely. But I've never been a big fan. I went to see it and I was like, it's okay. I think it was overhyped from the very start. I think it's a very weak film. I was never a big fan of it. So I don't even have that much to say. I guess, you know, Chadwick Boseman is good in the movie. He just doesn't have much to work with. Black Panther is not an interesting character in the movie. He just lacks anything special about him. He's great in Civil War. He's great in Infinity War because he's doing something and he has a purpose. But in this movie, he just doesn't really do anything. He shows up, he dies, I guess, and then he's fine, like 15 minutes later. I just think people overhype the crap out of this movie. There's a lot I don't like about it. I don't think the villain is particularly even that good. People were saying he was better than Heath Ledger's Joker. I'm like, guys, come on. He was a dude. Like, you guys gotta calm down. Sure, he had a motivation, I guess, but that does not make him a masterfully well-written villain. I don't know, it just weirds me out that this movie was so highly praised when it's pretty dang flawed. I'd say it's one of my lowest rated Marvel movies, honestly. It's so uninteresting in a lot of aspects that I just don't care too much for it, but that's my little rant. I don't hate this movie. There's things I like about this movie, but I'd say I dislike it a lot more than I like it, honestly.
Avengers Infinity War is one of my favorite Marvel movies to date. I can't even express how much I adore this movie. It's flawed, of course. Obviously there's problems. There's problems with everything, you know? But I can almost ignore a lot of the issues that I have with that movie because Infinity War is so ridiculously great. I love this movie so much. I love the tone. I love Thanos as a villain. I love that it's not really a movie. It has a very bizarre structure that a normal movie can't really have. It's an event, and it's so perfectly well captured from the very first scene to the very last scene. I was hooked from start to finish. I think I've seen this out of more times than any other Marvel movie because I can't get enough of it. You know, I watch it and I'm like, wow, that was great. I watch it again and I'm like, wow. Big fan of this one. It's one of my favorites. It's the main reason I'm so excited for Endgame, obviously. The ending just makes you want so much, you know? So, yeah, I love this one.
Sorry about the audio for this one. Real quick, Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think it's okay. I don't know. This one's weird. There's a lot I don't like about this movie. There's also a lot I like about this movie. I think it's very quirky. I think it's got a very bizarre sense of humor, and I really like that. I like Louis. He's very funny. He's very just sporadic, and I think that's most of the humor is just how insane he is. Scott in this movie, you know, he's weirder. I really like how much they address the events of Civil War. That's nice. You know, they really do. He feels bad for what he did, and everyone kind of hates him.
he gets a lot of crap in this movie for what he did, and I guess it's sort of justified, but I don't know, it's interesting, you know. I don't particularly hate this. I don't even have, it's really nothing special at the end of the day. I like some of the music, but it really doesn't look that good. I mean, it looks fine, but there's nothing super interesting about the visuals besides the Quantum Realm stuff, which, granted, does look nice. And then the post-credit scene is kind of, you know, it's got that chilling vibe that Infinity War has, so that's nice. You know, you got some things there, but overall, I don't really know what to say. It's just kind of an average Marvel movie. I'm not particularly a big fan of it either, but kind of. I like Ant-Man, so that's the one thing I like about it, but other than that, I don't know. It's just kind of not super interesting. I don't have much else to say. I'm sorry, guys.
Alright, so this is the last movie for our Marvel Marathon. The audio quality is a lot better because I'm actually using my mic now. I apologize for the terrible audio throughout this video. I could have done a lot better. Either way, this is Captain Marvel, and I actually couldn't watch this movie, but I watched it last month when it came out, so I have a good enough memory to kind of recall. I would have liked to rewatch it because it would have been nice to touch up on everything just in case I forgot something, but whatever, I've seen it. I don't know, this movie's pretty blah. The trailers were never super interesting for me, and then when I went to see the movie, surprise, surprise, I didn't think it was super interesting. There were some things I liked about it. I do like the little back and forth between Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, and Nick Fury. I think that's a very fun pairing, and I think the two of them work really well together. The 90s stuff is fun when they actually do it, but they don't do it that much. They don't work with the 90s stuff that much. Carol's past is a lot more interesting than the movie itself. I think if we had a movie focused around that, I think that would have been a lot cooler. I think the twist of the Skrulls being the good guys is I think that's interesting. You know, it's nice, play with the comic conventions. I'm sure they've done that in the comic, whatever. Skrulls are cool. I like the villain, Ben Mendelsohn, or whatever his name is. I do like that character. I always think Ben Mendelsohn's a very quirky guy. He's got the lisp and everything, which is pretty fun. Goose is whatever. He's a cat. Who cares? He looks fake half the time. I don't care. It's just a cat. Whatever, he's an alien. That's the joke. Haha, he's cute, but then he's an alien. Ooh, he poops out the Tesseract. Not poops out. He vomits the Tesseract. That's right. I just felt like the movie was just okay, you know, which is a shame because I was actually looking forward to it. I was hoping they would do a lot of fun space stuff. I was hoping they'd fix Ronan as a character because Ronan is super, super boring in Guardians of the Galaxy. They do nothing with him in this movie. They have him in this movie. They do literally nothing with him. He is just standing there. That was stupid. Why would they introduce this? Why would they reintroduce this character? Same thing with Korath. He doesn't do anything either. For those who don't know, he's the guy in the beginning of Guardians who's like, who? He's in this movie too. He does nothing. None of the side villains are interesting. Not even the main villain is interesting. Friggin' he's boring too. So, I don't know. This movie is so forgettable, and I really don't remember much. There's a couple fun things I like about it, but overall, really boring. That's my longest thoughts on any of these other movies, because I just had so much to say. So, yeah, Captain Marvel. There you have it, folks. That was the entire MCU, at least movie-wise. What should we take away from all this? Well, all said and done, I really think it's cool how Marvel has able to become a mainstream thing. That's weird. I mean, comic books were popular, but now these Marvel movies are mainstream media. These movies make billions of dollars at the box office. These movies are highly regarded by critics. It's crazy that we live in a world that this kind of stuff can happen. They're not just dumb, lazily thrown together pieces of crap movies. They actually have effort put into them and talent. Obviously, all of the creative people working at the MCU or Marvel Studios is highly to thank. People like Kevin Feige, who work their best to make sure that every product they put out is competent. I highly appreciate him for doing something like this. It really does show in the end. And even if I don't think every movie is perfect, or even a good movie, perhaps, a lot of them are some of my favorite movies of all time. And that's especially awesome, you know? Movies like Infinity War, Civil War, Winter Soldier, all these movies are some of my favorite films of all time. And they're about superheroes doing random things. They're about characters that I never cared about at all when I was a kid. And now I care about them now, as someone who's almost an adult. That's very strange. I originally saw Iron Man on DVD when it first came out. I watched Thor in theaters, and then when Avengers came out, I kind of figured it was a big deal, but I never really fully grasped how big it actually was. So I just I watched it with my parents and I fell asleep halfway through because I got bored. Yeah, that's a shame. And then years later, I kind of phased out the MCU, didn't watch any of the Phase 2 movies or anything like that. But then I found Ant-Man on Netflix, and I was a fan of Paul Rudd. Yeah, that's how I got into the MCU. I watched Ant-Man, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good. And then I got really excited for Civil War, and from then on, I was entangled in the MCU. It's actually really easy to get into these movies. You just gotta find one that you enjoy, and you're basically hooked. So, Avengers Endgame is coming out in a couple days for me. I don't know when the video is being put up, but either way, it's either already out or whenever you're watching it, I don't know. It's out, it's not out, who cares? I'm incredibly excited for this movie. I am scared. I really want it to be good, and if it's not good, it will feel like a punch in the gut. Luckily, reviews came out today, and apparently it's doing well, so that's good. I am still worried, though. But I'm so excited for this movie, man. I really am. So thank you everyone for watching my MCU marathon video. If you managed to sit through the entire video, God bless your soul. I love all you guys, and if you're seeing Endgame, please tell me what you think. No spoilers. If you're watching this after Endgame comes out, please let's keep it civil war. But good night, people.
Mm-hmm.